Hello, and welcome back to the Just Follow Joy podcast. My name is Ariana Joy. I'm your host, and I'm a human design reader and teacher. And I am always so stoked you're here. But the reason I'm stoked you're here today is because we are talking to someone so incredible in the human design space, the fairy godmother of human design, Eden Carpenter. And if you don't know Eden, first off, she is a 6'2" emotional manifesting generator. She is a master of energetics and authentic embodiment. She blends human design, gene keys, and rapid resolution therapy into a gamified and fantasy inspired experience. So she brings a lot of magic to this. And she's been described as many things, which should not surprise us, as a 6'2" MG with an undefined G center, which is something we'll talk about in the episode. She's been described as an energetic chiropractor, a wink in human form, and as the fairy godmother of human design. So at 22, Eden very impressively had already made her first six figures with her business while a bunch of other stuff was going on in her life. Her story is just so crazy, and it was so fascinating to hear. And at 24, she'd already made her first $1 million as an entrepreneur, which is incredible. And during this time, she's helped tens of thousands of people cultivate radical self-confidence and reckless self-trust. And she's also certified over 300 coaches in human design. So Eden is such an incredible person. I respect her not just for her depth of human design knowledge and the awesome way that she describes it to people. Like, you will hear Eden explain something, even if it's something you've heard before in human design, and go, I've never thought of it that way. That's one of the top things she hears. Honestly, it's a huge gift of hers. And so it's so fun to learn from her. But also, she is someone who really, really cares about people thriving and growing using human design, and just in general in life. She has so much integrity, and I respect her immensely. So also, I had a crap ton of fun recording this podcast episode with her. She gave us so much information. I told her, you basically gave everyone a free masterclass, like a really high level free masterclass. So we're all lucky that happened. But the conversation is pretty long. So I did something I don't usually do. I split the episode up into two parts. They're both going up at the same time. So as soon as you finish this one, you can go to the next one. But with that being said, I can't wait to share Eden with you. I forgot to tell you what we're even talking about. It's in the title of the episode, but we talked specifically on how to create aligned, magical, abundant business growth through your centers, defined or undefined. So how to understand how you're really here to operate and create that growth in a way that works for you. It feels really, really good depending on your definition. So we talk all about that. We talk about our experiences with our charts as well. And that's pretty much it for me. With that said, I just want to remind you that if you like the Just Follow Joy podcast, if you love the Just Follow Joy podcast, it would really mean a lot if you could like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on a different platform, do whatever it is you do to leave that positive feedback. It really does help the show, and it is very much appreciated by me. So with that being said, let's dive into part one and hear from Eden. Okay, Eden, I'm so happy you're here. I'm so excited for the conversation we're gonna have.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Eden is someone who we could talk about a million different things with in human design. There's a lot of different kinds of wisdom she could bestow upon us. But in particular, especially because I was just telling Eden before we hopped on, this is what I came to her for. I would really love to talk about using our design specifically around like aligned business growth, money energetics, energetic exchanges when it comes to that, buying, selling, etc. Because I think that you are really incredible at reframing human design overall. But
You.
really with this, truly. And we talked about this too. She has her conscious Mercury in gate 26, which is like communicating and selling based on value, like knowing what it is people need in something. And there are ways that we can do that in very high vibe ways. Eden is an example of that. There are also, if you listen to the episode about Osho, Bhagwan Rajneesh, there are ways that we can do that in a very low vibe way. So I'm really happy that we have her on as an example of this. And, especially since Mercury is what you're sharing and how you share it, like she's perfect for this. So we're going to dive into that. But I actually don't know this part of your story. Eden, to be honest, I don't know a lot of your background when it comes to like coming to human design. But how did you find human design, and what was that experience like? Because for me, I was like, yes, but no, because what the fuck is that?
Human design chose me. It was a divine intervention kind of situation that occurred for me. It happened where I was really into the Myers-Briggs personality types. I was in
Mm.
college, I was in a psychology class, and the professor that I had just explained the Myers-Briggs personality types. We spent like a whole week on it, really in depth and going through how this really helps us see how people interact and how they think and how they perceive other people. And all of a sudden, I was like, there's a framework for understanding kinds of people. And I got obsessed with it. And I actually got so good at it that I could have a conversation with someone and be like, are you an ENTP? And they're like, what? How do you know that? I'm like, are you an INFJ?
Wait, what are
And I
you? Can
could,
I ask?
I'm an INFJ. Yes.
That
And she
makes a lot
said,
of
really?
sense because I'm an ENFJ, I think pretty obviously, which anyone listening is Michael
Yeah.
Scott from The Office's type. And I was like, yeah, that tracks. And
Yeah.
INFJs and ENFJs usually, like, they get along, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the introvert extrovert energy. Yeah,
Mm.
but like the rest of it, we really make a lot of like we connect really well. So yeah, I started following a bunch of people who talked about Myers-Briggs personality types and the Enneagram, and I was just following people on Instagram that were talking about spirituality and manifestation and mindset while I was in college. And I think it was Catherine Zenkina who originally posted. She had like a question. Someone said, "Are you a manifester in human design? Because you're manifestation babe." And she said, "No, I'm a generator." I'm like, wait, what? What's human design? I like, give me this. And so I pull up my chart and there's all these shapes and there's all these colors and there's all these numbers. And I said, no, thank you. That's too complicated.
Me
Absolutely
too.
not. I'm good. I've just spent a couple of months figuring out this like Myers-Briggs personality type thing. This seems simple. This seems manageable. I can do it. And then all of a sudden, everyone was talking about human design. Like people were reposting Jenna Zoe stuff, and like this person was talking about it, and this person was talking about it. It was literally everywhere. And I kind of got a little bit defiant. I was like, no, I don't want to get that away from me. Like everyone's into this thing. It's so complicated. It's unnecessary. And then I was back in that psychology lecture, and this professor who had never used visual aids. He was not a presentation slideshow person. He was a lecture, have a conversation, ask questions, dialogue kind of professor. He said, I made a PowerPoint for this today. I don't make a lot of these. And he's going through the slides, and on one of the slides, there is this tech glitch where, when the formatting is just off, where it's supposed to be like, I don't know, it was all over the place. The words are everywhere, but in the middle, it literally had the word human and design next to each other. And they were talking, they were like in different sentences, and somehow they were right next to each other. And I swear in that moment, I saw it, and like everything started to fade out. And I was like, okay, fine. And so I went home and I pull up my chart and I pull up Google and I'm like, okay, what's a manifesting generator? What are the white shapes in the human design body graph? And all of the questions down the rabbit hole. And I have two undefined centers. So I figured it would be easier to figure out what those were before going through all of the ones that had color on them. And so I
Sorry,
was
your
reading about
6217 like patterns, it's so clear, like the level of logic there. It's like, okay, let's organize, systematize.
organize. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to piece it together. I'm going to break it apart bit by bit, and I'm going to figure this out.
Hmm.
So I was reading about the undefined G center and how that can show up for you, and how in its shadow frequency, it's this energy of searching for a sense of self, searching for a sense of identity, searching for love, searching for what do I have to do? Who do I have to be to make sure that people love me? And I felt like I had been called out on a pattern that I didn't even realize was running my entire life. But I was going to nursing school, or I was like on the nursing school path because I felt like people really respect nurses, and like I could do that. It Science is easy for me. Like that was my logic. Science is easy. Nursing school can't be that hard. Um, and then yeah, so I was going to school for that. I was really focused on just trying to understand people a little bit deeper. But with this undefined G center, I realized that that's why I love the Myers-Briggs personality types. It said, here's your label. This is who you are. And all of a sudden, it told me that like there wasn't going to be a moment where I found a sentence in a book that says like this is your life purpose and it's just going to activate me and I'm going to hold on to that forever. It said you're designed to be a chameleon. You're designed to change directions and be different people in different situations. And that'd been something that I had judged myself for so hard. I was like a best friend kind of person where somebody who was very emotionally chaotic would come into my world and I would be like trying to calm them down, working through all their drama, like really being their best friend. But then, my mother would always say, they're a bad influence on you. You turn into a copycat of every single friend that you have. You have no, like, you don't even know who you are. You're not authentic. And like, there was this energy of like, I felt like I couldn't trust myself because I shape shifted into these different people. And I was like, who am I? And when I realized that that wasn't something I had to fix, that wasn't something I needed to change, that was actually a gift that I could have, I was hooked. I was like, okay, I've never been read this deeply. I've never been seen at this level. And I got obsessed. And so I started applying it to my life, to my business. I found it in 2018. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
found it in
Me
2018.
too.
And
Yeah, I
amazing.
was going when you said that there
Yeah.
was suddenly an explosion of human design. I wonder if she found it around that time because that's when Jenna did her level 1 and 2 training that went out. And I think that's really when
Ah.
things started to take hold. But yeah, also that whole thing about the undefined G center. And yeah, absolutely. I'm just relating to all of it.
Yeah. And so I started applying it to my life. I was like, okay, I'm just going to wait to respond. There was an anatomy teaching position that I really, really wanted. And I was like, I'm not going to initiate. I'm not going to reach out to the professor. Like, he knows I want this. He's mentioned it because I've literally been like study group teaching my entire table already. And so I was like, I'm going to wait to respond. Like, it's going to come to me. And it did. And so I was applying it to my studying because I was homeschooled until I was a senior in high school. I'd spent 1 year in public school before going to college. And so I kind of just jumped into that world and I didn't know how to take tests. All of a sudden, I mean, I was used to taking them in my own environment whenever I wanted, taking my time. And so I'd never really taken a lot of standardized tests. And so I felt like I was understanding the material, but I was not testing well. And so I was the only one raising my hand. I was the only one answering questions, but I wasn't testing well. And so I was looking into human design for how do I learn? And I learned about the 6-2 profile does really well if it's here to teach other people. So I started writing my notes as if my best friend was missing class and I needed to like teach her everything that was going on in the class. And all of a sudden, my sixth line was like in that role model energy and really understanding things. And I learned about inner vision cognition. I was like, okay, so I need to be able to see the information. I spent more time like drawing things out and color coding my systems that actually allowed me to like visually see things. And then all of a sudden, there was one day where somebody was like asking about a specific chart in our anatomy textbook. I'm like, okay, it's on the left side of the page, midway down. I think it's page 157. And they were like, what? It was right. It was right. It was literally like a
Of course it
photographic
was.
memory. I was reading the page, I'm like 157. And so all of a sudden, my grades started getting better. My body was feeling healthier. My relationship was in this beautiful communication. I was feeling healthy. I was like, oh, Manny Jan, I've got all this energy at the gym. I no longer felt like I had to hold myself back. And then I got this nudge to just start exploring more people's designs. Like I understood me pretty well, but I wanted to understand me in the context of other people. So my little Instagram account with like 300 followers where I was sharing like study tips and I made, a printable calendar with intentions and goals and like celebrations, very spiritual in college kind of vibe. And I was just sharing whatever it was that I was doing. So I put it out there. I'm like, hey, DM me your birth information and email address, like not sketchy at all to send a stranger online on Instagram, and I'll do a free human design chart reading. And I'd had like 15 people get my little free download, and a couple people are commenting, and most of them are just like people I know, but then over 150 people responded. And so I did about 160 free chart readings where I made a little PowerPoint where I would go through and be like, okay, same process for me, where I would go to the textbook and say, okay, what's this? What's this? What's this? I started to figure out a structure of going through aura type and strategy and authority and then the centers and profile and incarnation cross. So I was sending out these like 20, 30-minute free readings. And I sent it out with like, if you want to explore this deeper, let me know. We can maybe get on a call for it. And the feedback that I got was instantly insane. Like people were saying, I've been trying to figure this out for years And the way that you just said it makes so much sense. I need to hire you as a coach. And so all of a sudden, I signed my first couple of coaching clients in 2019. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is really fun. So in nursing school, between classes, when we're like on our little breaks, I'm voxering people and I'm messaging my clients back and listening to voice notes. And I was really living this like double life where my undefined G center was still very much, I'm one of the good students. I've always got good notes. I always know when the assignments are. I've got all of my trackers. And like I was the resource person in nursing school, but then I was living this secret spiritual witchy life in my free time talking about human design and energetics. And my business brought in $23,000 that year, and it was insane to me. I was just blown away by the power of the system, and I was teaching people. They wanted to learn my process, and so I ran a super small course where at the beginning I was privately posting them on YouTube and sending people links. It was not fancy, not techy. And then the next year, in 2020, I was in my final year of nursing school. I must have found it in 2017, actually. Yeah, it had to have been 2017, actually, but whatever. So like doing the math, I was like, that's not right because nursing school is 2 years.
I love how exacting you are. Honestly, all the stuff that you're telling me about, like, I was the most organized person. I was like, I could see that. You were the person I would go to and be like, what are my assignments? I
Yes.
can't remember.
Oh, I literally in nursing school, because we all had the same classes in the program. It was a group of 40 people every semester were in the same classes. And so I went through and I made a table and it has what classes or like dates, like week 1, week 2, week 3, specific dates that everything is due, what class it was for, the assignment, and then a tracker. So I took like all of the assignments and made one big checklist. So I was always on track and everyone wanted it. They're like, okay, you literally have a calendar and you've like done the math of like what do I need from this course and this course. I'm like, yeah, like if I don't have it all in one place, I'm gonna miss something. And so if you want it, sure, here's my spreadsheet. And like I still do that stuff for the courses that I run. Like I create a lot of those calendar like resources to make sure that people can see what's going on. I also have 5 activations in the 1762 channel. Like I have 62 twice and 17 3 times. So if I'm not organized, no one is.
Yeah, honestly.
But yeah, I started like my last semester of nursing school in 2020. We went on spring break and we never came back because we went into lockdown. They said we're going to do it for 1 week. We're not. We're going to do it for another week. We're not. We're not coming back. So I finished my last semester of nursing school online, which was good for me because I'd done all of my like hospital hours and clinicals. I did do mental health clinicals online, like over Zoom with a professor because the laws were so weird then with like nursing students weren't allowed in hospitals because of COVID and like all of the things were, it was really challenging. And then I had all this free time in lockdown. So I was like, I'm going to make courses. And specifically what came through was I was ready to decondition my relationship with money. Like I was making a little bit, I made 23K last year and like that was incredible. But I felt like this had so much more potential and I wanted to stop feeling anxious, like going to the grocery store and just simple things like that. I just wanted to feel better about spending money, receiving money. I was still feeling like guilty of like I'm taking money, am I giving enough, am I like offering enough? And so I went through the human design body graph and I was like, okay, how can I apply conditioning and deconditioning specifically to money? And so I went through the non-self themes. So like I have an undefined head center. If I think I need to find an answer and then the money will come, I'm out of alignment. I'm not here to search for answers. I'm not here to search for inspiration. So searching for what's the money making idea? Where do I have to go? What's this secret that everybody seems to know about money that I just don't know? There isn't one. Like answers come to me. I don't have to search for that inspiration. The undefined G center, I don't have to be a specific person. And this was a huge one for me where people say, embody the wealthy version of you. I couldn't
Mm.
because that's not a consistent version of me and I don't have a defined G center. I don't generate that identity. And so I started playing with like what if there was just me in this moment and I just had $1 million in my bank account? Like if nothing changed, if I was in the same office, same room, felt the same, was working on the same things, I was like, okay, so I don't know who I'm going to be, but I'm open to being anybody. And so I just started playing with that and deconditioning my story around money. And all of a sudden, I was starting to get more clients and my business was taking off. And so I created Patterns of Prosperity, which was a course around me going through the deconditioning in money. And I had my first $15,000 month. And then the next month was a 20K month. And the next was a 40K month. And then it just scaled and scaled and scaled. In that year, we went from 23K last year to 291. And then the next year was a $950,000 year. And so it happened very, very fast. But I quit my nursing job after 6 weeks because it was just, I'd had my first six-figure launch and like money was just flowing in, and all of a sudden this was blowing up, and I realized that there was so much frustration in nursing, and I was only in it because that identity felt safe. And I was
Mhm.
worried that my husband was going to divorce me if I went online and did something crazy. And he didn't. He's still around.
That's good. I'm glad to hear
Yeah,
that.
that's
You would have
the
missed out on
whole
an
journey.
awesome journey in person, which I'm sure he knows. Oh my gosh. Well, first off, you already answered some of the questions I have in my doc. Spoiler alert, everyone, I have a Google Doc with questions. Yes, I still take notes on charts. I still write questions out, so I don't forget because I can really go off track sometimes. Um, but the first thing I wanted to say is I loved that note about the undefined G center. And that's huge for me because something I actually realized the other day was I also can't really do that. Like a manifestation technique they'll teach you, which isn't necessarily wrong, right? It just doesn't work for everyone, especially for the way that I'm designed with the undefined centers I have. But a manifestation technique they'll teach you is like you have to shift your identity into the person that you want to be. And I'm like, I literally cannot generate that with
Yeah.
my undefined mind center. I can't see it even with my being a non-specific manifester with someone with peripheral perspective, like I can't see like 5 feet in front of me. So like that's just not gonna happen. And something that I actually learned from you, Eden, telling me or reminding me about how we resource. No, you told me because no one's ever said it to me this way before. I'm not gonna like take that as my own. How we resource this information about who we are from other people, and then we get to decide with the undefined G center, right? It's not like we don't get to decide who we are. It's
Mm-mm.
just that we taste externally with that undefined G center, like these different versions, and then we accept, like, oh, hey, yeah, this resonates and this feels good.
Yeah.
Like that's what happened when someone was like, "You're the human design fairy godmother." When someone said that to you, and you're like, "Yeah, that resonates. I like that."
Mhm. Yeah.
And
And I
so,
now have it on a candle.
oh, I love that. Well, what I realized is I said, okay, well, if that's the case, then what's really more important for me is just to let go of the identity that I've created and fabricated that I don't like and doesn't really serve me and step into this state of being kind of nothing or allowing myself to not really know what it is I am right now. I'm being like, sick. All right, well, the next step to help me become the person that I want to become is just by not focusing on the person, on like this conditioned self that I don't really actually even enjoy being in. That's the not self. That's not who I am anyway.
Mhm.
It's funny too, because actually just the other day I had a really lovely client who's actually built like me. She has all the same defined centers. She had an undefined G center, and she was talking about, like, it was a reading just about her design in general, but in particular, she wanted to know, like, how can I find life purpose and direction? I was like, it's very unsurprising to me that you would ask this because you have an undefined G center and so many lines coming off of so many gates activated in it. And like, you are just really not someone who's going to have that consistent pull or purpose, and it kind of finds you. And when I
Mhm.
realized that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much easier because I have so many people with defined G centers in my life. I have 3 friends with defined G centers who by the time they were like 13 or 14, they knew what they wanted to do. And I was like, damn it. Like, I don't know that. It's kind of shifting and changing for me, and I can't say that ahead of time. So I really related to that. And then also, I just loved how, like, you are the only other person I know who would do this kind of thing besides my dad. You both have channel 2034. And I actually think, from the way that you were describing looking at pages and remembering the exact point, unfortunately, my dad was born in Iran in the 1950s, so we don't know his birth time. But he's able to do that exact thing. Like he can pick it out from a page. He was like, I have a photographic memory. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, you don't. Those don't exist. Psychologically proven, those don't exist. But I think he kind of does. But it's so funny to me that you guys had like 2 hustles at the same time that are like very work intensive, because my dad, I feel I talk about my dad all the time. He's a baller. But he ran a pizzeria for 35 years while being the head of tax at like a a Fortune 500 company, and like we're just working as the public accountant along the way, you know? And also what I loved, and I had to point out, makes so much sense. You would like choose nursing to go into with gate 25 because so many of them do become healers with
Yeah.
that very loving energy and just being love. And then with
Yeah.
channel 4037, like wanting to give everything that channel 6217 gave you to other people and being
Mhm.
like, how can I help you? How can I contribute to our nursing cohort? Because it's not just me. Like I am the provider, I am the
Yeah.
contributor. Um, which
What can
is
I
just,
do for my community?
yeah, literally, what can I do to create and guide this community? Again, you answered so many of my questions, but I I think what I would actually really love to talk about then and just dive right in is using our undefined centers when it comes to our business. So, I mean, if you'd be open, would you be willing to give like a little tip for each of the undefined
Yeah.
centers when it comes to, I guess we could talk about like selling,
Yeah.
we could talk about business in general, but
Mhm.
yeah, because I have my own points for my own undefined centers, but I'd love to hear your take on this.
Yeah, I know that in traditional like BG5 human design literature, it says we make money from the non-self. We make money from the undefined energy. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. In my experience, we can make money from any of our centers. It's really just about energetic exchange. And so when I think about defined centers, I think about something that I have a faucet on and it's flowing into my energy constantly. And it's something that like I have to move. And so if I'm feeling stagnant in my business, if I'm feeling stagnant in my life, am I moving my energy? Am I doing my part? So my defined centers are my responsibility. And it's very clear. It's like wherever you have a channel, you start in the one center and you move it to another. Like that's the energy. That is your job, is moving energy from one place to another. And then the
Mm.
undefined energy is what we receive. And it's what we are using our inner authority and our strategy to differentiate and like, is this useful to me, is this not useful to me, does this resonate with me, does this not resonate with me? And so our undefined centers and all of the channels and gates that are undefined are the classes that we are here to learn about through observing other people and borrowing their perspective. So with my undefined G center, I'm a chameleon. I, go into some groups and they're like, they put this projection of like, they literally said, oh, Eden's the mom of the group. And I'm like, great. Okay. Like, I'm the mom of the nursing school group. Am I the oldest? No. Am I the only one married? Yeah. So I was the mom of the nursing school group for 2 years. And it was just an identity that was placed on me. And anytime I was like, I don't know what's going on, I'm failing this, like, I'm like, this is awful. Everyone's like, oh, you must be doing so well. I'm like, what do you mean I'm doing well? Like, you're the mom of the group. You're so organized. It must be well. I'm like, no, I'm stressed. But we take on these identities. And so where when it comes to business, where you're undefined, you get to explore and you get to look out at the world and you get to, I'm calling it like borrowing fragments of magic. And so with the undefined G center, I borrow identities. Somebody recently said that, like, to describe the energetics of me talking, they're like, it's like if a wink could talk. And I was like, I love that.
That's
I'm the
so
embodiment of a
cute. Little wink emoji.
embodiment of a wink. That's so delightful. That's so playful and fun. I'm like, yeah, how can I bring some like winky energy into my life over the next couple of years or like in the next couple of days, whatever. And so with the undefined G center, I'm open to being whoever I need to be and I'm not attached to identity. And
Mm.
I actually kind of came up against that a little bit when I decided to step away from like teaching human design the way that I was teaching it. And I'm doing more innovative and creative things with it now. I retired a lot of my offers, and there was an identity of like Eden certifies and teaches human design this specific way. And I wanted to be more in my creative energy and flow. And so even though that was a really powerful identity that people had given me, it didn't feel like it resonated with me anymore. And so it was time for me to let go of that, even though it was really useful to me for a time. And so now I'm identifying as a creative entrepreneur and I'm really leaning into the word innovative. Like I'm extremely innovative, I'm extremely imaginative, and I'm very creative. And so those are the identities that I'm playing with, and that's the feedback that I'm getting. And so it's like I embody it. I'm like, this is who I want to be. This is kind of the energetics of like what I'm feeling. This feels useful to me right now. I'm not tied down to doing that forever. I'm also very open to like If one day I don't want to talk about human design anymore at all, I'm open to that. If I want to go write fantasy novels, I'm open to that. If I want to go start a singing career or like who knows what.
Hmm.
If I want to just like go work at a coffee shop, or maybe if I want to go back to nursing or go back to school, like I know that I have options. And especially with that undefined G center, whatever is interesting to me right now is meant for me right now. And so it also helps me to speed things up, because if this feels like a useful identity, it means it's relevant right now. And I don't know if it's going to feel relevant in the future. And so that means that now is the time that I get to step into that identity. And now is the time when that resonates with me. So right now, the fairy godmother of human design resonates with me. It's so playful, it's so fun. And so that's what I'm playing with and embodying right now. But that was something that was given to me. I was calling myself like in Messier, I'm like, I'm your resident alignment fairy. And everyone's like, fairy godmother. Nope, fairy godmother. Not like
Sorry, but you're
cute
wrong.
little fairy godmother. I'm like, okay. So yeah, we receive things. So going through all of the centers, it's really about there's like many different ways that we can use all of the energy centers really. So we'll try and simplify it to just like one or two things.
Hmm.
So we'll go with defined and undefined actually, if you're okay with
I was
that.
gonna say yeah, because I think we have some. I mean, listen, the undefined G center pretty freaking cool, and also everything that you were saying. Wow, so crucial to branding, right? Like being able. I remember one time I saw a reflector. Hi Becca. She posted on her Instagram like, can we just allow ourselves to change our brand colors and branding and just like let that be okay. Like we don't have to freak out about that so much. And it's never been something I've been super freaked out about, but I know people are like, oh my God, what if like I just can't change my brand, right? Like this is what people know me as. I can't change my identity. But it's okay to let that be fluid if you have an undefined G center. But if
Oh
we
yeah.
yeah, if let's start with the defined G center too, if we want to talk about
Yeah.
both.
Yeah. One of my like quotes that I say over and over again, especially if you have an undefined G center, rebranding is always on brand.
Mm, love that.
And like that's part of my brand is that I rebrand constantly. And you can go through my feed and you can see the evolution of the different phases that I have been in.
Hmm.
And like that's so powerful and that's so fun to see that journey and to like witness that transformation. So yeah, we'll start with the head center and I'll just like go through all of them
Let's
because
do it.
if I don't do it in the specific order, I'll lose track of which ones I've done and I haven't done. So at the head center, if you have a defined head center, people are coming to you for answers and questions and curiosity, and they're looking to solve their confusion and their doubts. And so if you have a defined head center, are you asking your question, like, are you asking your audience questions? Are you giving them food for thought? Are you giving them inspirational things like, hey, contemplate this today? Or I journaled on this question today and it led to really cool things. Why don't you do it too? Give your questions to people and allow them to like find their own answers. You can impact people with the questions and the curiosities that you're asking yourself. You originate general ideas, like you generate original ideas. And you come up with really incredible questions. So share them with the world because we're looking for inspiration. If you have an undefined head center, you pull inspiration from multiple places and tend to blend it together. I'm blending rapid resolution therapy, human design, and fantasy, like magic. Like those shouldn't work, but they do because I have that undefined head center and I'm able to take the inspiration from fantasy. I'm able to take the inspiration from magic. I'm able to take the inspiration from human design. And so I take the inspiration from all over the place and I blend it together to create something new. And that doesn't mean I'm copying anybody. I don't have original ideas. Someone might steal this. I don't care. Doesn't mean anything. It means I'm aligned because I'm here to source my ideas from the environment. And so that's something that the universe brings me answers. It brings me people. It brings me clarity. It brings me inspiration. That's never something that I search for. It's never something that I need. So defined head centers, ask your questions. Undefined head centers, how do you stay open-minded? And like what's inspiring you right now? Like share, like, hey, this person's really inspiring. I'm watching this TV show. We want to see what's inspiring you because that is what you're taking in and it's what you're filtering through your aura and it's going to be expressed and it's going to flavor whatever it is that you share next. So,
Mm.
inspiration in the head center. With the Ajna Center, you share, if you're defined, I have it defined, you share your perspectives, your ideas, and your beliefs. And I'm designed to be very certain in my perspectives, especially with all that activation there. And so when I say things, it can come across as very factual. And it's really powerful when I say things like, I think this. That's the voice of the 1762. So I share often, this is what I think. I know everyone doesn't think this, but this is my opinion. This is what I've seen. This has been my experience. And so that is me sharing my certainty, and people believe me. Like I can brainwash you into believing in yourself and you're just like, "Oh, well yeah, like that's just a fact."
Yeah, with Gate 26 too. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that's not what I was just talking about.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that about myself. I'm able to organize the inspiration. So I share my perspective. People want to know how I see the world. And something that I've been told over and over and over again is my ability to reframe things and see the present situation from a completely different perspective is unmatched.
It
And
is.
so,
Absolutely. Yeah, I literally said that on this podcast intro.
yeah. And like I heard it on a mastermind call yesterday.
Yeah.
It's it's something that I'm really good at. And like that's the 17. It has that city of like omniscience and like farsightedness is the gift. And so it is able to logically zoom out and reorganize the information into details that make sense and that are more useful. And so I share how I reframe things. I share the reframes that I've done for my clients. I share one of my favorite things because it's a projected channel is I like to empower the behavior I want to see instead of calling out the problem. Because we know that projectors and that unsolicited advice tends to not be received well.
Don't know
So
what
if
you're
I
talking
say,
about. I've never ever been called out by a projector and wanted to walk away.
did you see like the wheel of gates that I made on my
No.
Instagram? Okay, so I made a chart of like all the gene keys. I just like drew it out by center and I wanted to draw it. So I drew it on my iPad and like that's just like how I wanted to do it. And someone commented, "I have a suggestion. If you wanted to redo the entire thing, I'm not sure how tech savvy you are, but if you did it in design and you used a typeface, like the spacing would be a little bit easier and you could turn the language this way so that like the words are all facing the same way." And I'm like, "No."
Please tell me that was
Like
just the comment that you wrote in response. No.
I said something a little bit nicer. I was like, yeah, if I ever do anything professional with it, I will probably like graphically design it. But I just had a lot of fun drawing it out for myself as my own personal reference.
Wait, can I also
Yeah.
mention something in our reading? And I laughed. I laughed. Eden was telling me about how she posted something on Instagram, which is like not an unknown or not a like lesser known way of describing how to wait for the invitation for projectors. And she was saying like projectors can create their own invitations, and y'all do when you recognize yourself first. That's how you open your aura to them. But someone commented saying like, aren't projectors supposed to wait for the invitation? I think this is misinformation and you don't know what you're talking about. And I
Yeah.
laughed. I laughed so much because I'm sorry, but if you're telling me like Eden doesn't know what she's talking about, this has been such like a thing for me recently where I'm like, people online just they will say whatever they want to say, right? But
Yeah. I mean,
anyway, I
I've
had to mention
seen
that.
there was a video that popped up for me yesterday of like a pro golfer woman and she's just like practicing and this guy is just like, "Oh, like your swing back is like this is too slow." He's like giving her critiques. He's like, "Oh, I've been golfing for 20 years. I know what I'm talking about." And she's like, "Uh-huh. Like I'm literally a professional golfer." And, in that moment, like they said, this sounds like misinformation. And so I just explained it. I said, yeah, most of the time, the traditional language says wait for the invitation. I didn't want it to feel so passive because there's always invitations present and you're only able to receive them if you're recognizing yourself first. So I think it feels more empowering to say in this context, this is what projectors look like when they're creating their own invitations and they're recognizing themselves first. And they responded, "Oh, wow, I've never thought about it like that. I love that perspective." I was like, yep.
Thank you for the
I know what I'm
reframe.
talking about. So yeah, people will question your information no matter what.
Yeah.
And you just get to be certain and centered in yourself. And again, with my defined ajna, I'm designed to feel certain in my opinions. That's how I view projectors. That's an opinion that I really strongly have is that they can create their own invitations. And I've seen it with projectors simply asking, like, "Hey, are you open to some advice? Are you open to some guidance?" Literally just ask for the invitation. And that's not prying, that's not initiating. You are asking for the invitation. It's like asking for consent. And like it just makes so much sense. So, yeah, I'm designed to be certain and I share my certainty. And when people see things through my eyes, it's really powerful. It's like I get to give my glasses to people and say, like, what if it looked like this instead of like that? And that's a beautiful thing that I get to give people. And people with an undefined ajna, you get to share how you can take action without 100% certainty. And you're also really good at sharing how you see the same situation from a million different perspectives. And so there's so much power in both of it. And so, how do you stay open minded? How do you take action even if you're not 100% certain? How do you sort through all of the certainties and all of the really strong opinions that are out there? Because you're not designed to find the ultimate truth. You're here to borrow fragments that are useful to you right now. And so what perspectives are you borrowing? What perspectives are you trying on? What things have helped you see things in a different way? Share that with your audience, share that with your people.
When you were talking about, the undefined G center being something that like really resonated for you, honestly, the center when undefined, I mean, there's the heart center for me, definitely, but the mind center was the biggest thing for me. I grew up with a man who became a lawyer. I, grew up with a sister who also has an undefined mind center and also like felt that pressure to be really certain. And I, for the longest time, especially in my business, and I still work with this now, that lack of certainty has always been like it's been a
Mhm.
killer for me that I, really need to accept in myself. And anyone listening who has an undefined mind center, like I've always felt, especially with my undefined heart center, that I have to prove that I am certain all the time. I know what I'm talking about. And most importantly, that I'm very consistent with something that I said before. One of my biggest fears, which I'm working through now, and if anyone comments on Instagram thinking you're getting me, you're not, okay? But one of my biggest things is that like I'm really afraid of letting people down by not being consistent with what my perspectives are and what I'm teaching, and like not being able to pull that out of my file very consistently, which I can't do with an undefined mind center.
Yeah.
Like I get caught on the spot and I'm like, I don't know, all the time. And so this is like a really great reminder for me, because I all the time feel that I really have to be certain, when it's actually a huge gift of mine to pop in and be like, maybe it would be fun if we just stayed in the moment and worked with
Mm.
what we felt we were certain about right now and moved forward, because that can change and I can learn other things, and that can help all of us evolve. Like as I'm
Mhm.
evolving, I can show you that there are new steps to take too. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Oh yeah, and like with that, with the undefined ajna, like you're not here to be certain, you're here to be really open-minded, but also the smartest people in the world are still arguing about what's ultimately true. And like the scientific laws are only laws because they haven't been disproven yet. And like in medicine, in science, we do things until we realize that there's a better way. And so every respective field, when receiving new information, updates their opinions.
Mhm.
And so you as an individual should also have that permission to change your mind if you are bringing in new information, if you're absorbing new information, if you learn something new, I would hope that you take that new information into account with your perspective and with your decisions. And so if the smartest people in the world are still arguing about what's true, and I can go into like, I can't prove that human design is true. There's nothing that I'm ever going to be able to do to scientifically prove that human design is a map to who you are, but I've found it very useful. And so I'm not out here trying to convince people that this is real, this is fact, this is the only way to think about things. I believe that some people never need to use human design in order to be living in alignment. There's hundreds and thousands of people in the world who are embodying their design, but they don't mentally need to take in that information in order to live that experience. And so human design is useful to some people, but it's not necessary for everybody, and it may or may not be the ultimate truth. I think that people can find similar information in astrology, in the Myers-Briggs personality types, in the Enneagrams, in all of these different modalities that we have. And so there's so many different perspectives always. And like we can always come at it from the smartest people in the world are still arguing about what is true. So who am I to try and figure it out for what's like ultimately truth? I'm definitely not the smartest person in the world. Like the geniuses are out there, they can do their thing, they can argue, that's fine. I'm just concerned about what's useful. Because
Mm.
if even if 100 people say that, I mean, a lot of people told me that like quitting my nursing job was really reckless. And like, you might regret this. I'm like, yeah, I might, but I haven't. It wasn't reckless a little bit, but also it felt like the safest decision in my body. And so they said, like, you're going to make yourself unhireable as a nurse. You're throwing away this career. I'm like, yeah, and I'm okay with that. That's not a bad thing. In your mind, that's a bad thing. That's dangerous. But for me, it's not dangerous. I don't see it that way. And so
Hmm.
we get to, like, if that, like, that's your opinion, that's your perspective, awesome. But I'm going to see it this way. So yeah, just look for what's useful. Look
I
for what's
love that.
useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, hey, I mean, I'm all about the practical too, which is probably really funny to people who are like, you read people's like star charts for a living. But I'm with my incarnation cross, like I'm all about the practical realities and using that to make decisions. And so honestly, like, yeah, when it comes to, the undefined mind center, I'm like, well, this is what's practical right now and useful right now.
Mhm.
And like, I can't stick to, like, it's also about adaptation with my incarnation cross. So it's like, I can't stick to just what was because it was true then. This is how we survive. Like, 832 is like,
Mhm.
how do we adapt to survive? So this is what we're doing and moving forward to make things the best possible.
Mhm.
But anyway, so that throat center, I'm excited to
Yes.
hear about
Okay.
this, especially when it comes to like marketing and business and stuff.
Yeah. So with the defined throat center, I love working with the gates in it, like really specifically
Mm.
looking at the language of the gates in the throat center and using that in your copy. So I say I think a lot. I share a lot of my perspectives and opinions. Posts that do really well for me or when I share, this is a fact that I have found, here's my research, here's like what I know about it, and like really presenting the details. I can do like a 10-page carousel with a million words on it and it will do really well versus some people if they have super dense, like people say, oh, people aren't reading long carousels. People read mine because they love that detailed perspective, and like they say over and over again, I love the detail. Like you go into such detail. I'm like, yes, that's my vocation. So the other one that I have is the 3420, which is the voice of I am. And so I talk about I am this. I share from that I statement a lot. I talk about this is what I'm doing, this is what I did, this is how I felt. And people love to watch me in that process and they learn when I talk about myself. And for a while, there was like that marketing story of like you have to make your client the star, like the hero of the story essentially, and like you have to put it in you language, and that does not work as well for me as if I'm in the I language and I'm really like giving that example and being in my role model energy. So if you have a defined throat center, look at whatever center is connected to it because whatever's connected to it is what you're expressing. I share my perspectives and I talk about what I do. I talk about work. I talk about the things that I'm doing, the projects that I have going on, the things that are lighting me up. And so those are the things that I consistently communicate. And then with people who have an undefined throat center, you have the amazing ability to share the same topic in a million different ways. And so the way that you said it yesterday, the language that resonated with you yesterday may be different today, but your message is designed to change. One of my favorite examples, there's two actually. Oprah has an undefined throat center, and so does Amanda Francis. And so Amanda Francis talks about money and manifestation, and she's able to say, I heard somebody a couple of years ago, they said, I like her, but I feel like she's saying the same thing, just a little bit different in all of her programs. I'm like, yeah, that's her magic. Like she's able to say, this is like, as a generator, this is my topic, this is what I talk about, and I'm going to talk about it in a million different ways so that every single person, a million different people can hear that one sentence that's going to resonate with them. Like me saying it this way versus this way, it's going to resonate with this person versus this person. And so she's an amplified voice for that topic, but she's able to mirror the language of her people. So when she's answering questions for a specific person, she's mirroring the language and she's able to say exactly what they need to hear for it to resonate. And so, of
Mhm.
course, her answer for this person, even if it's technically the same answer, it's going to be a little bit different and it's going to resonate with them in a different way. And that's her genius. And I explained that at like a dinner table once. And they were like, oh, wow. I'm like, that's an incredible perspective. So
Yeah.
with the undefined throat center, my one thing, please don't delete your old content. Please stop deleting your old content, my beautiful undefined throat center beings, because yes, it may, like you might read it today and be like, oh, I don't know if I would say it that way today. Good, say it differently today. But don't delete
Mm.
it because how you already said it resonated with someone and it could still resonate with someone else. So you're just thoroughly saying the same things in every single way that you possibly can. And you're resonating with a whole bunch of people because you're inconsistent. And like, I love that for the undefined throat centers.
That was so good. Oh my God. I love that. Ah! Also, because I've been going back and like redoing my old courses, and I'm like, it's not good enough. And it's like it is now. Well, some of them had editing issues. So, to everyone who's getting the courses now, you're welcome. They're way better. But I also love, something to note too is that Eden has one side of a circuit that is like all about it's 1762 is in something called the understanding circuit, so it's like very logical, very detail oriented, very like factual sharing. And I have like the exact opposite one, so I have gate 56, which is all about like it's like this is like the gist of what happened. Right? I'm like this when I talk to people who have gate 56, and they'll like embellish stories or the way that they say things, because they're like, well, it's like that's basically what happened, that was the idea of it, right? Even if it's
Enrichment.
not exactly what happened. And what's funny is like we're so much more here to like be goofballs and just distract people with what we're saying. So the way that like what people come to me for and what they really like from me, yeah, I'm a 5-1, so they like getting information and seeing me as their textbook. But they like when I say things that, like, for example, I had this post that was like the energy types working together, and the manifestor was like, let's get the ball rolling, and the generator is like, let's keep the ball rolling. The manifesting generator is like, this ball is not going fast enough, we need to push this ball. And the projector is like, how can we help this ball like find its highest purpose in life? Like, the reflector's like, does anyone else see that this ball is just a rolled up dead squirrel? And that's like one of my best performing pieces of content.
That's so good. Oh my God.
But it's so funny how we can really serve people through these different ways of sharing. And mine is through being really silly and really just being goofy in a way that like people just don't get sometimes, because it's not as exacting. And that's something I've really had to accept. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. And like it's an unconsciously defined thing for you. So it's not something that you like consciously notice and see when it's in practice. It's probably more of like in reflection, you notice it.
Yeah, because people will be like, "Can you take this more seriously?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? I am like, this isn't like flippant. What are you talking
Yeah.
about? I don't
That's
realize
also
that till
like
people
gate
comment."
46. The
Yeah.
shadow of gate 46 is seriousness and the gift is delight. And so, like, literally in your identity, you identify as somebody who can be delightful in serious situations. Like, that's your gift of your identity. That's the thing that's consistent about, like, when that G center is active for you because you have 46 hanging. And so, like, when that's active, you're going to be like, okay, yeah, this is a serious situation, but like, we're alive and we're supposed to be having fun. So can we at least make the most of it? Like, let's have fun and let's be delightful. And the people who can be delightful, even in the face of seriousness, are the ones who are doing the real magic. Like, that is
Mhm.
so powerful to say, yes, this is serious, but I'm not going to allow myself to like not feel good and not enjoy myself just because it's quote unquote serious. Like, what does that even mean? What does serious even mean?
I don't know. I just know I don't like it.
Yeah.
I would prefer the other one.
Yeah, like I take things like you could even say like the city is ecstatic. So you could say I take things ecstatically.
Mm, I
I
love
don't
it. Yeah,
take them
because you have 46
seriously.
too. Yeah. Oh, love that. Hey, y'all, that is the end of part one. If you want to hear the rest of the episode, check out part two, where we're going to go over the rest of the centers, defined and undefined, and talk about a bunch of other really cool stuff.